what's going on? It's MassiveJoes RAW review, and I'm coming to you from MassiveJoes.com. Awesome raw review for the viewers at home today on an old new stimulant-free, unique new fat burner from our good friends at Blackstone Labs. It is, of course, Trojan horse in the house. Let's get straight into it, show you guys exactly what's in it, tell you exactly what it's gonna do. That nutritional information panel ain't gonna get it done. We're about to go balls deep in this here Blackstone Labs Trojan horse. Luckily, we got ourselves a big ass nutritional information panel for the viewers at home. Dilip, go ahead and cut up that nutritional information panel on the screen for the viewers. Starting from the top, serving size, one rounded scoop, 8.2 grams. Got yourself about 60 of them 8.2 gram, one scoop bitches. And one of these 60 serve Trojan horse bitches. In terms of what the 8.2 grams is made up of, if we do a quick summation of the active ingredients, we'll very quickly, very easily see that it contains about 36% colors and flavors, which means there's 64% of active ingredients in each scoop, each and every scoop of this Blackstone Labs Trojan horse. In terms of what the actives are actually made up of, starting from the top, Chromium Picolinate, 200 micrograms. This is not milligrams, this is micrograms, 1,000th of a gram. So 200 micrograms of chromium picolinate. For those of you who do not know, chromium picolinate, aka chromium pic. That's most people say chromium pic, because the picolinate, you know what I'm saying? Chromium pic regulates blood glucose levels, keeps insulin stable, which is a very good thing, because if your insulin's all over the place, everything else in this Trojan horse is going to do sweet all. So the chromium pic is in there effectively to set the foundation for Trojan horse to kind of do its thing. Moving right along, we then get into the cool stuff right here, man. Starting with calcium pyruvate, the most abundant active ingredient in this Trojan horse in a 4,000 milligram dose. Now, calcium pyruvate is the calcium salt of pyruvate, because pyruvic acid is it's not stable. So you have to bound it to something to make it stable. So that's why it's calcium pyruvate. The easiest way for me to explain how pyruvate works is it makes your body work harder to produce energy. So it makes your body actually use more calories to produce a certain unit of energy. That's the easiest way that I can kind of explain how pyruvate works. In terms of scientifically how it works, it is much more complicated than that. It's got to do with stealing electrons from different compounds and altering the way that the Krebs cycle works, and altering the way your body actually produces ATP. And for that, my man over at Blackstone Labs, my man Brian, aka the Gorilla Chemist, does a much better job at explaining the science behind how pyruvate works than I do. So I'm gonna throw to him right now.
Pyruvate, which is our Trojan horse, by HCA blocking this pathway, which pyruvate normally gets converted into acetyl-CoA by the enzyme pyruvate dehydrogenase, and by doing so, it makes a molecule of NADH. Now you'll notice there's an electron here. This electron comes from this enzyme to make NADH, and then these molecules, acetyl-CoA, then goes into the Krebs cycle, and the Krebs cycle is coupled with the electron transport chain, so that way the reactions all flow together. So normally you have glycolysis, which the end product is pyruvate, and then pyruvate gets converted to acetylacetate, and it goes into the Krebs cycle. And then the Krebs cycle goes into electron transport, and that's how your body makes energy. So basically what we're doing is we are downregulating the process of pyruvate going to acetyl-CoA. We are upregulating the process of pyruvate going to oxalacetate. Now here's where the Trojan horse part comes in. Oxalacetate is not bioavailable enough to be taken orally. So we had to think of a way to increase our levels of oxalacetate with something that you can take as a powder or a pill. Pyruvate is that Trojan horse that we can kind of slip in and by the right mixture of chemicals, by, like I said, upregulating this enzyme, we're now increasing our levels of oxaloacetate. Now, this is where the product gets really cool. So remember I talked about this electron here that's responsible for the reduction of NAD plus to NADH. Well, since we're now converting pyruvate mostly to oxaloacetate, oxaloacetate has a very high redox potential, meaning that the energy for it to get reduced into malate is favorable. So this reaction will go forward. So we are stealing the electrons from making NAD to NADH, and we're now making more malate. Now this is a favorable reaction given that everything here is pushed forward via the HCA. So once the electrons here go to malate, malate goes back into this Krebs cycle, and these electrons now, instead of going here where we need them, they re-enter the electron transport chain here. So they are completely bypassing this step. So these two molecules, which are made inside the Krebs cycle, the electrons necessary for these molecules to be made are being stolen by oxaloacetate. And that's kind of the idea of the uncoupling. Now, normally when you'll have high levels of oxaloacetate, that will lead to low levels of NADH and FADH2, and that is what we want to happen. So instead of like I said, instead of these electrons going to the Krebs cycle, we're splitting or uncoupling the process of making energy, which is really cool. So where does your body get the electrons then to make these molecules, since these molecules are absolutely necessary to make ATP? Well, the cool thing is your body actually will now break down fat completely into CO2 and NADH and FADH2. So your body is getting the electrons necessary for these two molecules by completely breaking down fat.
So there you go. That's the science behind how pyruvate works. If all of that just went straight over your head, come back to what I said in the first place. Pyruvate makes your body work harder to produce a certain amount of energy. That's the easiest way to explain it. In terms of, there's been a lot of studies done on pyruvate, a lot of studies done that have shown it's very effective, not only at just increasing, up-regulating your metabolic rate by making your body work harder to produce that energy, but actually using stored body fat to produce that to produce that energy. That using stored body fat for those extra calories to produce that energy. There's been a lot of studies done on it. In terms of the dosage, that's one thing that Brian didn't really go through in the science. In terms of the dosage, there's been a lot of studies done on pyruvate at a lot of different doses. So I've seen studies that go as high as like 40 to 50 grams per day. And then I've seen kind of the sweet spot is what they say for pyruvate at about 6 grams per day. So you got to remember that in this Trojan horse, we're talking about calcium pyruvate, so not freeform pyruvate, calcium pyruvate. We don't know the ratio of calcium to pyruvate and how it's bonded, but if you're taking it 2 times a day, you're getting 8,000 milligrams. I'm gonna say that's pretty well clinically dosed based on that sweet spot for pyruvate based on the studies. The one last thing that I will say about pyruvate is that it does contain calories. So in a lot of the studies that they did, obviously to lose body fat, you have to be in caloric deficit. So if you're even thinking about trying this product, you better be in a caloric deficit or this ain't gonna do shit. You have to be in caloric deficit. So in a lot of the studies, what they did to account for the fact that pyruvate does contain calories is removed gram for gram pyruvate for carbohydrates. So let's say with this Trojan horse, you're getting your 6 grams of pyruvate if you're taking it twice per day. To keep yourself in caloric deficit, you'd have to remove 6 grams of carbohydrates from your diet and substitute the pyruvate. So that is something that is very important to keep yourself in caloric deficit and make sure that you're in the right metabolic position to be losing weight in the first place. Moving right along. We then get into Garcinia Cambogia extract, 750 milligrams, standardized for 60% hydroxycitric acid. That is a massive dose of hydroxycitric acid. That standardization is huge, but at a 750 milligram dose, that is a massive dose of hydroxycitric acid. For viewers at home who are unaware, hydroxycitric acid, aka HCA, blocks the citrate lyase enzyme, which is the enzyme that's responsible for converting excess glucose or excess carbohydrates into triglycerides or into fats. So the easiest way to explain it is it's a fat blocker. So it blocks the conversion of excess carbohydrates into body fat. Moving right along, we then get into L-carnitine L-tartrate, the final active ingredient in this here Trojan horse. L-carnitine L-tartrate is the L-tartrate salt of L-carnitine. L-carnitine, for viewers at home who are unaware, is your fat metabolizer, the amino acid solely responsible for transporting fatty acids from stored body fat into the mitochondria of muscle cells, where those acids can be used for energy, where that body fat can be used for energy. So we refer to L-carnitine generally as a fat metabolizer because it metabolizes body fat. The one thing to note with this Trojan horse, everything in here is either clinically dosed or above clinically dosed, except for the LCLT, the L-carnitine L-tartrate. Generally speaking, we like to see L-carnitine dosed at around 2,000 milligrams. You've got 500 milligrams in this Trojan horse, so it is quite severely underdosed. Therefore, I would recommend, if you're taking the Trojan horse, to stack it with a carnitine type supplement. Something like Creation Supplements Acapure would be ideal. Moving right along, got yourself some artificial colors, artificial flavors. And that's what's in it. So it's actually a pretty simple supplement if you break it down. You've got 4 active ingredients. Your first active ingredient kind of sets the foundation by regulating blood glucose and regulating insulin for everything else to kind of work. That's your chromium pic. Your second active ingredient, your calcium pyruvate, is getting your body to work harder to create energy. So we would say upregulating your metabolism or increasing your metabolic rate without the use of stimulants. Your third ingredient is making sure that your body's not taking excess carbs and converting them into body fat. And your fourth ingredient is taking stored body fat and breaking it down so that it can be used for energy. It's really that simple, and it is quite an intelligently put together supplement. The fact that all those ingredients kind of work together to effectively help increase fat loss. In terms of how it tastes, how it mixes, comes in 2 flavors. Comes in, there it is, lemon lime. Comes in black currant. You guys know I don't get down with citrus, man, so there ain't no way I'm touching that lemon lime. Got myself a brand spanking new tub of this Blackstone Labs Trojan horse in the black currant. About to put it through the infamous MassiveJoes taste and mixability test, man. Got my Team MassiveJoes shaker, of course. Got the infamous double wall glass. Got the brand spanking tub of Trojan horse black currant. About to bro punch this bitch here. Boom. That's how we do it at Team MassiveJoes. And I gotta say, the first thing that you will notice with this, with the Trojan horse is I've just spooked Trojan horse all the over myself. It's a big serving size, so 8.2 grams, and you've got 60 serves in a tub that size. So it is full to the brim. Look at that shit, man. And that's why I have Trojan horse all over myself, because I bro punched it, didn't remember that it's full to the brim. So that is a cool thing, especially, you know, with most fat burners, you get the tub and the thing's half empty. All right, let me find the scoop in this bitch. Blackstone's got me digging for it with the little moisture absorbent bullshits. A couple of them in there. There's the scoop. I found it. I found it! All right, so that's the size of the scoop, your 8.2 gram scoop, so you guys can see what we're dealing with. Gonna follow the directions down to a T, man. Mix 1 scoop of Trojan horse in 8 to 10 ounces of water upon waking up. Well, it's not upon waking up, but I am gonna follow the, I got a little bit too much actually. Let me break it down to, let me drink some of this beforehand and get it down to 10 ounces. There you go. Got myself 10 ounces of water in the Team MassiveJoes blender bottle. I'm gonna take 1 scoop of this Trojan horse in the black currant. Throw this bitch in this bitch. And let it rain, let it rain. Gonna throw the lid on. A few flicks of the wrist, man. We'll show you guys how it mixes. refresh my memory on how this black currant tastes. All right, check it. Zoom and focus action, please. You guys see that shit? You see that shit? That is damn well mixed. Look at that. No floaters, no sinkers just yet. There is about to be sinkers, which is why I would go so far as to say blendable is required. For this here Blackstone Labs Trojan horse, let me just, before I taste it, tell you about those sinkers I was talking about. You guys see that? It does settle down the bottom, big time. So if you were to mix that up in a spoon with a glass, you're gonna get all kinds of settling action at the bottom of the glass. If you do it in a blender bottle and then you throw it into the glass, as you can see there, you don't get anywhere near as much settling action. That's why I say blendable is required. Let me refresh my memory on how this blackcurrant Trojan horse tastes, man. It tastes good, baby. It tastes good, baby. Blackstone Labs generally not here to fighters when it comes to flavoring their supplements, and this Trojan horse is no exception. That is actually a really nice black currant. The one thing to note, I'm not sure if I said when I was going through the nutrition information panel, there are actually no artificial colors. So Blackstone have off the artificial colors. That's why it's black currant flavor, but doesn't look like black currant juice. It's kind of got that weird, it almost looks like the lemon lime. For a second there, I thought I had the wrong top, but no artificial colors. In terms of the effects, because that's what you're taking this shit for, man. That is what you're taking this here Trojan horse for. The ingredients in here have been studied a lot. There's a lot of study on chromium pic, a lot of study on pyruvate, a lot of study on Garcinia, Cambogia, in particular hydroxycitric acid, and a lot of study on L-carnitine. You can't deny the science behind this product. And the theory behind how everything works together, like I mentioned, is very intelligently put together. In terms of what kind of effect it's actually gonna have on fat loss, and what a lot of people will wanna know is it going to be more effective than a stimulant-based fat burner? So if you're comparing the Trojan horse, the non-stimulant fat burner, to a stimulant-based fat burner, let's say Blackstone Labs Cobra 6, for example, which one is going to work more effectively? I think the answer to that question is you're always going to get better increasing caloric output from a stimulant-based fat burner. I think that goes without saying. The cool thing about this Trojan horse, the first cool thing is it's not the first time that we've seen a stimulant-free fat burner before, but most of the time it's a standard fat burner with the stimulants taken out of it. There's no kind of intelligent putting together of ingredients or trying to get to different pathways within the body to stimulate fat loss. It's usually just, here's our stimulant version, here's the non-stimulant version, and the difference between the two is the non-stim version doesn't have stimulants in it, which is bullshit. That's the reason why I really like this Trojan horse. By virtue of that fact, it makes it incredibly stackable with any stimulant-based fat burner, and I really think that's where you're going to get the best results. At MassiveJoes, we've always talked about the fat loss triangle. We've talked about your thermogenic, so your stimulant fat burner, to increase your caloric output, to upregulate your metabolic rate. We've talked about your fat metabolizer, which is your L-carnitine, and then we've talked about your essential fatty acids as the fat loss triangle. I almost think that now with something like this, with Trojan horse, you're almost talking about a fat loss square or a fat loss rectangle, where now you've got another aspect of that where you're using other ingredients and other pathways to increase caloric output, to upregulate your metabolic rate without the use of stimulants. So in terms of stackability, you can stack it with a thermogenic fat burner and not worry about getting too many stimulants or overdosing on certain ingredients. You can stack it with acetyl L-carnitine because there's not already a clinical dose of acetyl L-carnitine. You can stack it with essential fatty acids because there's no essential fatty acids in there. You can really stack everything together and thereby get the most benefit out of each part of your fat loss arsenal to really increase caloric output and really upregulate the burning of body fat. And I really think that's where Trojan Horse kind of comes into its own, is that stackability with other products. If you're taking it by itself, you're not gonna feel anything really, you know, especially if you're used to using a stimulant fat burner that kind of gives you energy and makes you more alert, makes you feel good. You're not going to get that from Trojan Horse. The way that Trojan Horse works is on different pathways that you don't feel it. That's one thing that you really need to make note of. But if you are after, and there are a lot of you out there I know that are after something to assist with fat loss that isn't necessarily based on stimulants, that you know is going to do more than just L-carnitine by itself or essential fatty acids by itself, but you don't want the stimulants because you're already taking your fat burner, you're already taking your aminos with caffeine in it, you're taking too many stimulants already, you don't want those extra stimulants from your fat burner. I really think that's where Trojan Horse kind of comes into its own, it fills that void in non-stimulant fat burner that's actually intelligently put together and is going to work. So guys, if you're looking for a non-stim fat burner, or you're looking for something else to add into your fat loss triangle to really turbocharge the absolute shit out of it, you got to give yourself some of this Blackstone Labs Trojan Horse a shot. Guys, hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, man. Stay up to date with all the latest editions of MassiveJoes RAW review and all the other deliciousness in our YouTube channel. If you're watching on the mobile, don't forget to turn the post notifications on so you don't miss a beat when it comes to the MassiveJoes YouTube channel. And guys, that is MassiveJoes RAW review on the all-new Blackstone Labs Trojan Horse in the house. And I'm coming to you from MassiveJoes.com. Stay massive.